Right, what's cracking? Welcome back to the Daily Magwire. You get it? The Daily Magwire. I think that's probably the greatest football-related show name title on YouTube. But anyway, we'll see on episode 200 instead of 2. But yeah, I don't mean in terms of Manchester United. Everyone's talking about Jim Radcliffe turning up to Old Trafford and planned meetings at Carrington, and Dave Brailsford auditing the club in some performance aspect, or maybe every single performance aspect. One sec. And yeah, so I just want to go through a few points about that, really. I find some elements quite interesting. Because at the end of the day, you see Jim Radcliffe there today at Old Trafford, and Sir Dave Brailsford, who will be overseeing this from a kind of board level eye, not so boots on the ground, and the boots on the ground is where it gets interesting, because the structure that gets put in place in between Dave Brailsford and Eric Ten Hag, that's like the most important thing that can happen at Manchester United. It's been the most important thing that needed to happen to Manchester United for 10 years, right? Or since Manchester United have kind of, well, not even Manchester United, but since the European ethos of football structure in clubs has kind of like come over to the UK. Since it's become a dialogue, since the importance of a real foundation and structure on the football side, we haven't had it, right? And we've gone through talking about management, talking about players, talking about the buildings that these players operate in, the buildings that the fans operate in. We've talked about the ownership, all these different elements, and obviously this pseudo football department that we've put together. But I feel like the noise around every other level should really kind of calm down. Even on the football pitch, I feel like the importance of what goes on the football pitch, maybe because we're that bad, that's one element, and I do find myself getting disinterested when the performance levels are so bad. But also, I just think there's such a poignant moment of Manchester United's recent history and the near future that's coming is the appointment of, whether it's fucking Jean-Claude Van Damme, or whether it's the appointment of fucking, or whether it's the appointment of Paul Mitchell. Those personnel, the ones that are going to be dictating to a certain extent the style of play, and the way that they'll be dictating the style of plays through the profile that they're going to be looking for, the player profile they're going to be looking for. Now, this is the one thing I thought about with this is, for one, we understand that Jean-Claude Blanc and Paul Mitchell and the Edwards guy who may be coming in, they're obviously going to have such a massive influence on how we go about, whether it's the recruitment side of things and bringing in the right player profiles, the right personalities, making sure that the medical side of things is right, making sure that all the academy structures are done properly, etc., and the facilities and whatnot. But then also, what does Jim Radcliffe and Dave Brailsford, what's their ethos and what's their outlook on football? Because it'll be very interesting to see how much influence, or whether we will ever be able to see the influence that they have in regards to what trickles down, like how much autonomy is being left. And this is an interesting ladder, isn't it, of autonomy, because how much autonomy is Ten Hag going to be given by the likes of Jean-Claude Blanc and Paul Mitchell and Dave Brailsford, etc., right? But then also you can carry on up that ladder, and how much autonomy are Paul Mitchell and Jean-Claude Blanc going to be given? Is it going to be like traditional clubs in Europe where they are given like real big massive reins and they can make real big decisions almost single-handedly to an extent, right? They have real massive strength in their position. More strength than the manager, right? Across the board in Europe. The DOF stays, right? That is the constant, and the management will just keep changing, and you have to keep a linear approach to what you are going for as a club, as a style of play, whether that's with whatever it is, right? Even on the commercial side of things. But it'll be interesting to see what direction we go as a squad, right? Because this squad has been built up of very kind of similar-ish profiles, and the players that seem to have succeeded are a certain type of profile. That type of profile is all the dynamism and physical attributes that you can think of in football, and very little of the technical, thoughtful, aware football that we haven't seen at Old Trafford since 2010 probably. And that comes down to our squad, right? And in terms of what we have, like we've just said, like the squad is filled with a certain type of personnel. The players we're trying to get rid of at the moment, granted, are the higher wage earners, but it also is the players who are probably more technically proficient, better on the ball, better at taking care of the ball, better at playing a possession game. So we're ridding ourselves of our technical footballers who might not have performed, but it's about attributes, right? So we're ridding ourselves of Sancho, most likely Varane, most likely Casemiro, Donny van der Beek's already gone, most likely Greenwood, Martial. Like, that's some serious talent, right, in terms of footballing talent. And squads need balance, right? And players themselves need to try and achieve balance physically and technically and mentally. But it seems like our squad is filled with players that only can hit one of the trifecta, right? Are they good mentally? No. Are they good technically? No. Are they good physically? Yes. And that's where I feel like our squad is at. Mentally not strong enough and like mentally not focused enough to get through games, to get through runs of games, to get through periods of games, to get through parts of season, the ends of seasons, going deep into tournaments, going deep into the league. So we don't have that mental edge. We don't have an abundance of technical ability that we can actually link a supply chain all the way through our team to the other goal and trying to create some chances. We don't have that. So if we're ridding technical footballers, the only ones that we really have are the nucleus of technical ability, then we are left with a canvas of real physical, like, these guys, they're running in the Diamond League in fucking Switzerland next Tuesday, right? That's the kind of footballers we have. Now, when you come into a club and there's a squad that has such a dominant player profile, what do you do, right? Do you build on that? Do you try and improve that profile? Do you say, listen, we see what type of player here that works or that has worked in recent past, the players that have been performing in the recent past? We can see that it's slightly unbalanced, so what we're going to do is just build on what we already have, right? So that means saying Rashford just having a bad season, even though he's had like 4 before this one. It's a bad season, 30 goals last season. Rashford, we're going to build around Rashford. We're going to build around Bruno. And basically, that's where it's at, isn't it? It really is that simple. Are you going to build around Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford? And it's very interesting whether that would work or not. If you really try and be objective about it, do we still want to be a dynamic, like strong, transitionary team where it is just real chaos? And are we just trying to perfect that? Are we going to get Todibo in? Are we going to get another big, rangy striker who can hold up the ball, be more physical? And are we going to just leave the midfield just barren and empty like Route 66? Like, what are we doing that? Or are we going to really try and turn this humongous ship? Are we really like slowly but surely and rid ourselves of these players and sell smartly, sell these players that have been performing smartly, and get in enthusiastic, technical, good, physical players still, but who are really there technically? And I think this is the problem that Ten Hag faced as well when he came in. From when Ferguson left, I feel like we were getting towards that with when he was signing Smalling and Jones, and he could obviously see that the Premier League was getting physically stronger and stronger and stronger and more dynamic and more dynamic. And I feel like we've kind of really we tried to be balanced with the signings that we've made from when Fergie's left to a certain extent, right, between technical and physical. And obviously the ideal would be both. But when I'm saying technical or physical, I'm not saying that players that are technical have no physical ability, or I'm not saying that the physical players have no technical ability. It's a ratio, isn't it? Like what basket do you throw your eggs in? Do you know what I mean? Like where's your strengths lie? Because yeah, it's interesting because Ten Hag faced a similar thing to what Jim Radcliffe and Brailsford and Paul Mitchell are going to face. The fact that you have this squad and there's no balance to it whatsoever. By the time January transfer window's over, you might have rid yourselves of 2 or 3 pretty gifted footballers that for one reason or another hasn't worked out, right? And so it's a interesting scenario. I feel like Paul Mitchell and Jean-Claude Blanc should be able to make a lot more better decisions than Ten Hag, right, in regards to recruitment and the direction that you want to go with recruitment of players, right? I recently heard a Pep Guardiola interview, right? Who was he talking about upstairs at Man City? I think it was Cheeky or whatever his name is, Jicky or Cheeky. He was on about the structure that he has above him, and he was on about the recruitment of players, etc. Oh no, sorry, this is what he said. He was on about management, and he was on about managers, and I think they were on about Xabi Alonso. I think they were on about Xabi Alonso and managers in general, and you've had and company and the managers that have come through Pep Guardiola, right? Considering every single one that Alex Ferguson had been utter complete failure, pretty much everyone of Pep Guardiola so far seems to kind of like have really learnt a lot. And he was talking about Alonso, etc. And he said, I've got a really good eye for players that are going to be managers. But what I don't have a good eye for is actual players. And that's very interesting hearing Pep Guardiola say that. Because here's a man who's lauded as, and rightly so, as probably the greatest manager that's ever lived, or the greatest hybrid coach manager that's ever lived, however you want to call it. And here's the greatest of all time telling you that he doesn't actually have the greatest eye for footballers. So even Pep Guardiola is saying, I need all this structure and you bring me the footballers. They need to be identified. I'm telling you what I want as in my system. I need this in my system. But what he said there, in that sentence, when he said, I'm really good at picking future managers, but not so good at picking players. He's telling you there that that's not where his abilities lie. And that also says that, one, you don't have the time, right, to actually do the research to find like the specific perfect player for your system. But also, it's a different skill set. Figuring out who can fit into a system is different than actually moulding a player into that system. And I feel like Pep Guardiola, really shone a light on that there's a disconnect in terms of, as a manager, you can be really good at identifying profiles and players, or you could be horrific at that but still be one of the greatest coaches that's ever lived. Because when the players are actually on the ground with you, when you've got them in that environment, you just need to know that all the boxes have been checked before that player comes through the door. And then from that moment, then the greatness of Pep Guardiola comes into play. And that's really what the big issue for Ten Hag has been, that this structure hasn't come in just a year earlier. Where they go, whoa, you're not touching transfers, mate. We don't know how long you're going to be here. Neither do you. You don't know what's going to happen. But we're here for a long time. And my mate Paul here, Mr. Mitchell, he's here for a long time. And so is Claude over there. And we're going to work together so that our footballing philosophy and the profile of players that we want Manchester United, that we want to represent Manchester United, the football that we want to see, the brand of football. We have what we want. We know the style that we want. Now, can we fit what you want into that as well? And we mould that together. And I don't think that Ten Hag should have a veto. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Should managers have a veto? And traditionally, and as a purist, you should say yes. I mean, there should never be a player that walks through the door that the manager really, really doesn't want. But it's interesting because I feel like they should have a veto, but only to a certain extent. But then that completely nullifies the idea and definition of a veto. This is just interesting times for United. I'm really excited to see what Brailsford, Jean-Claude, Paul Mitchell, whoever comes in. I'm massively interested in really highly qualified, serious, elite level sports performance people coming into Old Trafford, and the improvements are going to be like humongous. We might not see them on the pitch for 6 months, 8 months, maybe like a year, maybe, right? But I feel like once these characters are in place and we know we have this real solid structure with every one of them's got a little black book where they can phone a lot of people, a lot of numbers, a lot of contacts, whether that's for players, whether that's for medical staff, whether that's for like even just for like facility stuff. Like, I don't know, there's so many things in industries that you're just not aware of that people gain in terms of networking and knowledge. And that's the biggest thing for us. So now we're in here, January transfer market. Everyone's talking about this striker, 19 different strikers from Germany and Italy. And it's like, man, whatever. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't know. I just get to the end of January. If I see someone with a shirt, great. Boniface. I heard Rance. I think Rance had a show earlier, and he was talking about Boniface. I think that might be a link. I mean, it's a bit. I mean, he'll do more than Haaland for sure, right? Because you can't do less. But I don't know. I'm excited for the structure above Ten Hag more so than what I'm excited for what's going on the pitch. Really, that's where I think I'm at as a United fan. But But yeah, what else we got here? But yeah, I think it's interesting that which way are we going with player profiles? Because and what can you even financially do? And it's all about the outgoings, isn't it? How many players can we actually get out of this fucking club? And eventually, does anyone have the balls to sell Rashford and Bruno? Do we have the balls to get rid of our top salesman because we want a different trajectory for our business? We had a sales team, and this is my analogy on Bruno Fernandes, right? So you got a business, right? So you got your sales team, you got your buying team, but we're going to focus on the sales team, right? So your sales team turnover like 20 grand a week, right? Everyone in total, 20 grand a week. And then there's this new guy that's coming in, right? He's meant to have had like quite a few records at his previous companies for sales and turnover and whatnot. So new guy comes in. Now, new guy comes in and he starts off really well. He's getting in loads of sales, loads of leads, proper powerhouse in regards to sales. He's a bit scruffy, doesn't dress the best, doesn't keep himself the best. He moans all the fucking time, complains and throws his hands up at other members of staff, but he gets a lot of sales. Now that would be amazing, but what's happened at my business and in my sales team is the sales are still at 20 grand a week. Now, this guy has come in and he has taken, like, he's got 40% of the sales. So him on his own is our highest earner in sales that we've had over the past 5 years. But the rest of the team, it's a detriment and all their numbers are down. So we had to make the executive decision and take a step out and look actually that our sales figures haven't actually changed as a team. Now, even though this guy is our top performer in terms of numbers, what he creates and the style of the way that we're selling and the aggression and the emotion that is being put into our sales team has had a detrimental effect to everybody else. So for the greater good of the business, I'm going to get rid of this top performing sales guy for the benefit of the actual team and for the benefit of the total number. Because it doesn't matter where it comes from. It's about the total number. And if we can perform better as a whole team and reach the same amount of sales, then that is a way healthy environment and a way more sustainable approach to running any elite level performance institute. So fuck Bruno off. Fuck Rashford off. If you fucking Martial off, fuck Rashford off. You actually get 50, 60 mil for Rashford. They just signed a new deal, right? I mean, try and get 80 mil from anyone for that guy. You can get 60 mil for Rashford. You can get 60 mil for Bruno. But we're not going to, are we? So yeah, what else we got? But yeah, I mean, that's going to be it. Like I said, I think it's interesting how with the structure, how much autonomy is each level going to get? How hands-on is Jim? How he's an old guy. He's been about. He seems to like football, and like every other fucking English dude on the every football fan on the planet, he has a fucking opinion and what he thinks is the way you should play and when you shouldn't play. Blah blah blah. Now he's a very astute businessman and he's a very smart guy, so I'm sure he's not looking to bestow his football knowledge onto onto Dave Brailsford or onto Jean-Claude Blanc or onto anyone at Nice at the moment, right? But it's interesting, like how much of Jim Radcliffe and Dave Brailsford, how much autonomy or how much influence will they have over, maybe the player profile and the style of play and the overarching optics of Manchester United as a football club, on the football side of things. So will they give autonomy to the director of football, Jean fucking Claude Van Damme, whatever the fuck his name is? Will they give autonomy? And then will those boys give, how much autonomy will they give to Eric Ten Hag? Will Eric Ten Hag, even though everyone thinks he just doesn't want any help, and he doesn't seem like that guy, but will he be back in his element of having that structure around him like at Ajax? Or as close to it as possible? So it'll be interesting. Just looking forward to United finally making their step into modern day football. And I think this is the biggest thing out of everything. Those guys coming in is bigger than the stadium, is bigger than the training ground, is bigger than a striker in January, it's bigger than a defender in January. It's bigger than all of it. So yeah. Right, I'm going to get off, watch the darts, and see. I think Real Madrid are winning 1-0. Let's have a look at the scores quickly before we leave. Who we got? Oh, Madrid done already, bro. Fuck, that was quick. That was mad quick. Who scored? Rudiger. Yeah, fair. Yeah, what was your own Atletico? 2 minutes. Yeah, fuck it. I'm going to watch your own Atletico. Watch a bit of the darts. But anyway, yeah. That's me done for today. Another daily Magwire in the bag. And we're back tomorrow with another episode. Talk over a few more topics. And peace out, everyone.